Hi guys, hope wherever you are and whatever you've been doing, you've had a sensational day. The benefits of reading books to and with children are endless. To begin with, it stimulates their imagination and expands their understanding of the world around them. It helps children to develop listening and language skills and prepares them to understand the written word. From a scientific perspective, it's one of the most effective ways to build the language neural connections in their beautifully growing brains, as well as the strong base for their cognitive development. With all of these benefits, it's really worthwhile considering how can we expand and extend the reading activity to continue them benefiting from reading. So what do we do when we've turned that last page of the book? So tonight, we're really thrilled to be joined with Susan Spelic. She's a reading advocate, author and founder of the Reading Mountain, and Susan will be answering 3 key questions discussing what reading extension activities are available for our children's favourite books. How are you, Susan?
Hi, well thanks Rach, how are you?
Really excited to be chatting with you. And I was doing a bit of prep for this chat tonight, and I read that post-reading strategies provide children a great way to summarise, reflect and question the book that they've just read. And it's an important component, I guess, of what the pre, the during and the post-reading strategy is. Would that be the right way to maybe have a discussion about it? Or I don't know, what are your thoughts? Is that right, maybe?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it is. So one of the things that we should consider is, the child's motivation. If the child wants to read the same book over and over again, there's so many things you could do with the same book, and they're still learning. So using that momentum and that motivation is something that parents can do.
Yeah, and I think it's quite common that kids will have their favourite book, and I'm sure that the parents themselves also may actually get to the point they're a little bit becoming a little bit unstuck
Absolutely.
about reading the same novel all the time as well. So this is, I think, equally a conversation maybe for children as it is for the parents, maybe, would you say?
Yeah, absolutely. So, the more you do with the book, the bigger the range of language that you're exposing the child to, their vocabulary is expanding. You can also flip things around and ask questions about the morality of a story or of a character, or about their character traits, and it can go in all different directions. As long as it's interesting and relaxing and not a drill. That's the important bit.
Yeah. So we published an article titled "Finishing the Last Page of a Great Book, Try These Ideas to Expand Your Kids' Thinking." For someone who hasn't read the article, can you tell us a little bit about what it's about, what inspired you to write it, and what it's all about?
Yep, so I've got experience in, I have had people ask me this question, especially parents of young children who want to do the best for their kids at home. So, they've got a book that they've borrowed from the library or a book that's at home. What else can I do with the story? It's not just reading the story, is it, Susan? So, I'd say, no, you can, there's so much conversation you can have with the story. It's about the learning, but mainly it's about the enjoyment and expanding the ideas in the story. So, what motivated me to write it was that it's a common question. So, yeah.
Cool. And within the article, you share a long list of activities parents can do to expand the children's thinking. Could you possibly just highlight some of your favourites from that beautiful long list that's in the article?
Yeah, so it was amazing once I started writing it. It was amazing how many activities just came to the forefront, because it was it's amazing what you can do with one book. You can actually do a lot. So one of my favourite one is basically an author study. So if you've got a particular book, or a child has a particular book that they like, a really good one is to find and chase up titles from the same author. So that's always going to be a good thing. And getting the child to look it up and seeing if it's in the library catalogue, or going to buy books or whatever it is. And if there's a birthday coming up, a good idea would be to ask Nan and Pop for another Dr. Seuss book, or whatever it is that's doing it for them at the time. So, but one of my favourite one would be to sort of say to the child, especially if they're a bit older, would be to say, all right, what do you think of the illustrations? And that, of course, you're having this discussion about them, and you could sort of talk about, well, what do you think, the illustrator used? So that's going to, and the mediums that they used. So that's going to sort of excite children who are artistic. But also, I wonder if that illustrator's got a website. Let's look to see what other images they've got. Have they got an Instagram? That sort of thing. So you're looking at the people behind the story as well, and thinking bigger about not just the story, but the people who put it together. And so then also you could look up the author as well, what other books have they got, what else do they do in the community, that sort of thing. So that's one activity that's really, really good. It doesn't involve a lot of reading, but it involves a lot of research. So,
I love your question, like, what could happen next in the story? That really sort of does expand their imagination, gets to think, beyond the book and what.
Yeah, well, that can be done across all age levels, and if the child doesn't have an answer, it's a good idea to sort of model that as well as the adult or the carer, and say, well, I think that the character, or name the character, could have gone into the shop and blah blah, and he'll expand on it and sort of say, I don't think, what's if the character didn't do that, if they didn't go into the farm and find something. So there's all sorts of what ifs you could do. You could play a what if activity with them. If this didn't happen in the book, what happened, and so it's it could go anywhere.
And
so
the same
that's
thing.
what's activity.
Yeah, and you get the question, can you think of a different ending to the story to flip the story around? That's another great one too, I think, as well, to really get them sort of, thinking. So you got a great list within there. So everybody watching, there'll be a link at the bottom of the introduction paragraph, and definitely take some time to have a read through that. But let's get stuck into the question.
Yeah, and I suppose
So sorry.
There's one thing I did want to mention. There's one thing I did want to mention. If you're going to flip an ending or flip a story around, is to then have a discussion about opposites. So replacing words that are going to change the meaning around completely. So, and that's a bit of fun. And I suppose the pre-reading skill of rhyming, identifying the rhyming in a book, is very important, especially for preschool kids.
Yeah.
That they listen to similar words and how they sound. That's really a good one. Yeah.
Oh, well, I mean, I think, and there's some information at the bottom of that article as well about that rhyming and the speech game as well. So definitely have a look. So let's get stuck into question number 1. If my child keeps reading the same book, is it a problem?
The answer is no. If they're reading it for enjoyment, particularly if it's a chunkier, thicker book, that's not a problem. But at the same time, negotiate and say, how about let's read this, or let's find, again, going back to that author study, what else has that author written, and to expand their repertoire. It's not a big problem, but if it's the only one they're reading, as long as it would be a problem, but they'd be reading a lot more at school. So it's not, if they're reading for enjoyment and to relax before bed, that's okay. I just think kids are under a lot of pressure to do a lot during the day. So, if that's what they're opting for, mix it up. Give them an audiobook, see how that works for them, because that's quite novel. That's building vocabulary as well. You want to entice them into some other ways of, reading. People say that audiobooks isn't reading, but they are reading. Yeah.
They
it's
are.
Still that whole, it's all about language development.
Yeah, and tapping into the imagination as well. And you mentioned also, it's supposed to be relaxed and casual, and it's not meant to be hard work. Like as you were saying before, it's really, life is busy and it's stressful. So the last thing that we actually need is, I guess to have it in a stressful time sort of at the end of the day when we're all trying to unwind and go to sleep. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
So let's get stuck into
the whole idea is,
sorry, go. Yeah, go.
The whole idea is to wind down at the end of the night with a nice story, and if it's the same one, it's no biggie, it's no big deal.
Yeah. All right, let's get stuck into question number 2. Now, what if my child is not interested in reading the book when I know that they can?
Okay, again, it goes back to how much reading they're doing at school or during the day, and if their teachers aren't concerned with their level of reading, I wouldn't be too fussed about it. They're probably doing a whole lot of other amazing things during the day and at home that you should focus on. Not all kids are readers, not all adults are readers. Doesn't mean they can't read. I wouldn't be too concerned about it, but it's a good idea to expose them to different things that might entice them. So, or to read to them, very important, because they like hearing a story. Most kids will read or have a bedtime story where their parents are listening to them read, but you can flip it around and just read it to them and they can relax. So, if they're not reading it and if you're reading it, that's fine too. Again, it's meant to be a wind down time.
Yeah, and I mean, you've done a lot of teaching over the years, and you're currently sort of working with schools as well. Have you found a pattern as to why that happens with children, or is there no pattern at all?
I don't think there's a pattern. I haven't picked up a pattern, but I have had that question. We all want our kids to do well, and I think parents worry too much about how much they're reading at home. But if they're, they're achieving all the right levels and the kids are happy and well, if they're not reading as long as we think they're supposed to read, you've got to question why we're asking this,
Yeah.
I think they're doing so many other things as well, like I said. But there's no pattern. I don't think there's a pattern that I've noticed.
Yeah.
Particularly with after-school sports and everything, then we want them to read after having an extracurricular activity. How much can we fit in the day?
100%.
Yeah, think about that as well.
So we are sort of jamming a lot into their day. Yeah, that is sure. Yeah. All right. Question number 3. If it is a bedtime book, how do I ask the question and talk deeper with my child about the story? And does a rich discussion need to sort of happen every time?
So, getting back to the whole idea, no, it doesn't have to happen every time. It'd be nice to have the occasional rich discussion, but, the whole idea is to also model your wondering about the book. So you might sort of say, I wonder why the author decided to have an 8-year-old boy in that story. If it was a 12-year-old girl in the story, would the story change? What do you think? And it's all about opinions, and it's you can try giving them little hooks and seeing whether or not it leads to a discussion. But I wouldn't be too worried if it isn't rich all the time.
Yeah. And I mean, from an age perspective also, like reading extension activities would sort of commence, and I guess parents would be looking to sort of to have those discussions after the book. From what age do you think?
Oh gosh, if they're really good at oral language, as early as possible. If they're keen talkers and if they're want to be part of the discussion, go with it. You can't hold them back. I think it does them a great service to expand their thinking. But what I do like is the whole idea of going to a little community library, the one that exists in the streets. Swapping books over. A really, really nice hook into reading is to for a child to ask another child about a book recommendation and do a book swap, And so, Jimmy likes that book. That looks really like a really cool book. I'd like to read that one. So then you would then go and organise to either access it through the library or whatever. But, recommendations like with anything, if a friend or someone trusted recommends something to you, you're going to listen. It's always about word of mouth in anything that's worth doing, really, when you think about it.
100%, yeah, because you've already got that trust in what that person thinks, and that's half the way.
If it's about motivating your child, it's about trying to see what other kids are doing and getting that discussion happening. So it's and to also mix it up with fiction and non-fiction. Some kids just like information text. That's okay as well. But to read them a narrative at the same time without expecting them to read it for you, you can still read it to them. Yeah.
Well, look, you've given us lots of food for thought, and as we said at the start of the chat, this is something that I guess is equally for parents as it is for children, especially for the parents that are just reading the same story over and over again. But it's not a bad thing for us, adults, to be able to tap into our imagination and have that conversation with kids as well, because we sometimes probably don't speak and have in-depth conversations about life and about these things enough anymore, because we're sort of busy. be tired and see, you know, we're busy looking at screens and all those types of things as well. So anything to engage, you know, an open, imaginative conversation, I think is worthwhile. Absolutely. So thank you so much for your time tonight. Now, if anyone's got any questions and wants to sort of get in touch with you or learn more about the Reading Mountain, whereabouts can they find you?
So if you look up thereadingmountain.org, that's where our website is, and we've got a whole range of resources and books for kids that are really going well in schools for pre-reading, and so it's going very well. And if you want to contact me directly, it's susan@thereadingmountain.org. Happy to answer any questions about home reading.
That's sensational. Thanks so much. Love the chat tonight, Susan. We'll see you soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.